Chapter 2. How many ways can a heart break? I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt because we had just had a baby. I wasn't trying to really be selfish. I believe that when you get married, you can have as many children as God allows you to have. How can you have any stipulations on our marriage without us being in agreement? When does what I want in this marriage matter? All the babies I had lost. As tired as I was pissed. Don't tell me out of your freaking mouth that your wife can't have any more kids with you. I was triggered. I felt cheated. Stabbed in the back all over again. So you have a baby with someone else that you made during our marriage before your wife even has one child from you. Yet you tell me this is the only child I'm allowed to have with you? So what are you saying? She had my last baby? This was not the moment or the time to discuss this. I had just given birth to our son, who was less than a day old. My husband would have been better off being silent. You didn't belong to her, yet you gave her what was mine. My heart was crushed. How dare you deny your wife another child after you had a baby with another woman during our marriage? Selfish, selfish. How aren't you trying to do whatever it takes to keep your wife? Especially since I got pregnant 1 month after I found out the baby was 99.99% yours. I definitely didn't expect for this to happen to me in my marriage. Let's be honest. Nowadays, it's normalized for husbands to go to make babies out on their wives. No one seems to think about how the baby will grow up, how the child will feel cheated, out of time with their dad, let alone how a child would feel about the wife or the other siblings because they didn't grow up in the same house as their father. I'm not sure what these women are gaining by sleeping with married men. Once the baby came out dark-skinned, she knew it was my husband's and not her fiance. One day, I got this message on Facebook from a lady saying that she had a baby with my husband. I took screenshots of the message and sent it to my husband. I called as it was sent and asked him, who was she? He said, I don't know. As he was speaking, my stomach had shooting pains through it. Discernment is of the Holy Spirit, and the Holy Spirit sure doesn't lie. I knew before he said another word, I felt it. I just knew it was his. I cursed him out so bad. He kept saying he didn't know who she was. I screamed the word liar. He said, stop believing everything you hear. I said, stop putting me in positions to have to defend myself or our marriage for people you are bringing into our marriage. I didn't care what he said. Every word he spoke, it felt like a knife. I hung up on him. I stayed outside of the salon so my client wouldn't hear me. I hated that I had a client. I couldn't counsel nor could I shake this. Trying to work on a client's hair right after you find out your husband cheated and that he also might have a possible whole child? I couldn't believe it. The one thing I never expected in my marriage was for him to cheat, let alone have a baby. And this fool did just that. This intruder didn't text me because she wanted to apologize. She wanted to destroy my family, our home. She wanted drama. She wanted to talk to me so badly. I wouldn't. I couldn't. Because my thoughts were not good thoughts. Home was no longer home. Our marriage would never be the same. You aren't just asking me to forgive. You're asking me to stay with you and be a part of this baby's life, if it's yours. For your wife to not even have your child? How dare you ask me that? I started to cry. I saw the pattern. He just wouldn't stop putting me through hell. I had just returned from California last night. My mom was nice enough to let me do a pop-up shop in her house. It was pretty cool. When I came out there, I already had lined up a nice number of clients. I couldn't believe how God was moving on my behalf. He knew what I needed. When I arrived, I was super happy. Seth picked me up from the airport. I said, hi, twin. Seth reached over and hugged me. The marijuana smoke hit my face as soon as I opened the door. That's California for you. I didn't mind the marijuana smell, but they knew I quit a long time ago. My mom called it medication. You don't want to be around my mom if she doesn't have her medication. If she doesn't have it, you better go get some because the whole house will have no peace. I stopped smoking when I got to St. Louis. I was an angry little person. I was 4'5" in high school and finally reached 4'11" by the time I became a senior. I tried to keep up smoking because it kept me calm. I wasn't from St. Louis. My Aunt Carolyn made sure I kept a job. My first one as soon as I arrived to St. Louis was Hardee's, but that's back when Hardee's sold chicken. I started to ask God questions like, why can I hear you so clearly? And why do I talk to you when I'm stoned? He said, because this is when you listen. I laughed, but I couldn't shake it. I knew I heard God. I was scared to tell anyone because I didn't think anyone would believe me. They would think I was crazy. I never knew why, but I could tell you that anyone who walks with Jesus will tell you God has always been there. Some way or another, you knew God's presence and was always near. I quit smoking marijuana at 16 and a half, but I started when I was 12. I started drinking when I was 13. I quit drinking when I was 19 after my so-called boyfriend had intercourse with me when I was intoxicated. My choice of drink was gin and juice or Parmesan. Cousin Mila used to be pissed because her husband was smoking with me. Cousin Kendrick supported that I got stoned. Smoking was my peace of mind. However, when I took the smoking and drinking way too far, God showed me. I would have been dead. I wasn't trying to test the Lord like that again. Seth tried to pass me the blunt. I said, no, thank you. But can you pay attention to the highway? I had one hand on the door and one hand on the seatbelt. Seth said, Alita, stop. Just stop. I said, dude, you're tailgating him. I was trying to breathe. He said, no, I'm driving. I said, well, in St. Louis, we don't do that. He said, well, in California, we do. I didn't learn how to drive in California. I learned in St. Louis. Cousin Nyla was determined to teach me how to drive before I turned 17. Aunt Carolyn and Cousin Mila didn't drive by choice. They never wanted to learn and had no issue with taking the bus, no matter how cold it got in St. Louis. The Show Me State is the coldest I've ever witnessed. -10 degrees. I never seen that in California. Some earthquakes, yes. Ice storms, not at all. One night, Cousin Nyla picked my aunt and I up. We were on Highway 70 on our way to Northwest Plaza, the mall. I saw Cousin Nyla pull over. She said, Alita, you drive. I was chilling in the back seat. Who was she talking to? It was raining hard, and the car was full of people. To make my anxiety worse, she said, Alita, don't forget, all of our lives are in your hands. She said driving is a privilege, not a right. I told her, we can do this another day because it's raining. She said, it could start raining anytime, and you don't have to drive, and you have to drive in any weather. I got out, we switched. I was scared, pissless. I was only 16 with a permit. I stayed in the first lane. My grip was so tight on the steering wheel and my hand was hurting. I started praying. I was so happy to see the K&G sign. That was my exit. Lord, get me off of this highway. Needless to say, I wasn't a highway driver. With the way my brother drove, maybe I should have hit the marijuana. We made it to my mom's house safely. She had just moved to Sacramento, California. The house was nice. I was proud of her, but I was more proud that I had touched the ground. I was out of his car. I thank God. I went in the house and saw my mom, hugged her and started to cry. This is my mama. I said, hey, Mom. She said, hey, baby. You can have all the godmothers in the world, but there is only one woman who carried Alita. It was cool. We talked. She showed me my dog. This was the original purpose for me coming to California. My dog was white blonde, fluffy, cotton-like hair. My mom promised her that Alex to give to her as her best friend. Everybody catered to Alex because of her vitiligo. That child was bad as hell, but this was her granddaughter and she wanted to do something for her. And who was I to stop her? It was me, the mama, that had to pay $95 for a ticket for Pebbles to be put on a plane. My sister June walked through the door. We hugged. Everyone wanted to see Alita, the black sheep that moved away. I was just as happy to see all of them. My mom took me to the garage to show me where I could do hair. She didn't want people in and out of her new house. I understood that. She sat in the chair and started smoking. June started smoking. Then Seth started smoking. I said, Jesus. They all got on my head. June said, why are you acting like you never smoked? I told them I didn't need to smoke. Seth started joining in and said, you wouldn't be so uptight. I said, really, Seth? I started to get mad. He said, smoke some trees and put your mind at ease. I couldn't stand him. I shook my head while they all started laughing. Don, my mom's husband, came outside. He was smoking with my mom. Uncle Tim was in his room. Thank God, because he didn't need secondhand smoke. We were laughing at what Seth said. Seth said, so you came here to do hair, huh? I said, yes. He said, where? Mom showed him where I was going to be. This dude, Seth, grabbed some wood, nails, and a light, an extension cord, and built me a salon in 30 minutes. My brother is a jack of all trades. He is a tree trimmer, a boxer, a rapper, a producer, a writer, a chef, and has great customer service skills. He used to move furniture for a job as well. That's my twin. I grabbed all of my stuff and started setting it up. I had people coming the next day, but June wanted her hair done that day before I was to leave. She was paying, so I didn't care. What I did not disclose to my family was that my husband walked out of his job that he had been at for 5 years because they wanted him to cut off his beard. He felt that because he had been there 5 years, he was guaranteed unemployment. Needless to say, he didn't talk to his wife. He got denied unemployment, of course, because he quit. I needed to do something quick. The salon money wasn't coming fast enough. I had only been open for 3 going on 4 years. All the bills became too much for me. I was paying all the bills at the salon and at the house with no help but God. I know where my help is coming from. I also found out my husband was cheating with the dealership lady. She became my client and she was telling me about a man she was with, and that man was my husband. She allowed him to get 7 months behind on a car note, and he was supposed to be paying for. Now the car was in repossession. Of course, the car was in my name. Now she was coming to me for the money after she slept with my husband. This fool didn't have any self-control, continuous disrespect. It is exactly why I'm not talking to him now. While my husband is doing extra in our marriage, I needed money for the rent. This is way too much. We have children, and you're only thinking of you, not this family or the stress you put on me, your wife. Who up and quits? Who has no savings? I didn't tell my family my personal things because I didn't want them to look at my husband differently. Family or friends will keep the image in their head no matter how much the person has changed. If I didn't tell you anything, you wouldn't need to choose sides, especially if I ain't going nowhere. Boy, that sentence right there. Boy, you talking about death do us part. Jesus. I planned on asking Uncle Nick for $1,000 to stop the repossession. Uncle Nick and Aunt Nikki have been in my life all my life. They always talk to me and never take my mom's side. They heard my pain, and Uncle Nick always said, well, how do you think I feel about my dad? Uncle Nick never made me feel bad about having mommy or daddy issues. He didn't want me to let it ruin my life or to me to drown in my own pain. They let us visit Fort Worth, Texas. I considered moving there. Aunt Nikki, who is also white, always loved my uncle's black family. After all, my grandma, his mother, Alita, is white from Holland, the Netherlands, as my mom says it. My mom named me after her mother, who passed away when she was 14 years old. They have never missed a birthday. They have sent Christmas money. They have sent things for all my children. They even sent $500 for my wedding to Ricky that Ricky had called off, just for us to end up getting married the next year. My mom threatened to commit suicide if my father walked me down the aisle. She said that he didn't deserve to be there. Nevertheless, I couldn't wait to see him. We had always been close. My favorite memory was when he taught me the song, "You Are My Sunshine." You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You never know, dear, how much I love you. So please don't take my sunshine away. I now sing that song to my kids. The next day I started work. I wasn't sure how much money I was going to make here. Asking Uncle Nick was just my safety net. My phone rang. It was my husband. I said, Jesus, what does he want? I got mad and a tear fell down my face. I had been 100% extra emotional. I was 3,000 miles away working and do whatever it takes for this family while he walked away from his jobs. My husband called again. I never let him know I made it to California, just like he did and talked to me before he quit. I refused his call again. I needed the courage to ask my Uncle Nick. My mother-in-law started to call. I walked out in the backyard and I called her back. And she said, Jay, you need to call Ricky and talk to him. I said, Miss Annette, with all due respect, who walks off their job after 5 years? I don't work at Greyhound no more, and it's just the salon. This is too much for me. She said, Jay, I understand, but please call him. I called him. He asked when I was going to let him know when I made it. I said, why does it matter? He said, because I'm your husband. I said, how are you my husband when you quit? How are you my husband when you left all these bills on me? Answer this. If you hadn't paid the car note in 7 months, where did all the money go? I had to buy school clothes for all 3 of the kids with no help from you. You watched me struggle. Where did the $1,400 go? Because it never came to this house. He said, I see you still mad. I will talk to you later. I hung up. I went back to doing hair. I heard all the loudness. Uncle Nick was in the house. I went to hug him, and of course, more tears. After my day had finished, my uncle came out to where I was. He said how he liked the styles I had done. He said, is this what you do at home? I said, yes. I said, business just needs to pick up a little faster. This was my window, and I asked him for the loan. He immediately said, why do you need $1,000? You have a husband. Isn't he working? I told him about my husband. My uncle said no. I was shocked that he said no. At the same time, I couldn't be mad at anyone but my husband. My last day there we had a barbecue. It was nice. Chef Seth was on the grill. June wanted mama to make lasagna. I wanted some too. After all, my mama had taught me how to make it. Mom and I had to go to the store to get some foods. When we got back, she cooked. We enjoyed taking pictures with the family. My sister and my nieces and my nephews were there. My twin niece had her child there. I enjoyed my siblings and my mom and seeing both of my uncles. I called to see Uncle Reggie, but he wasn't able to make it. California was my home. I really enjoyed coming home and doing what I love to do. Van had me do his wife's hair, his children's hair too. I made a solid $600 just off them. I was blessed to cut my Uncle Steven's hair. It was a blessing to see him alive. Years ago, he was in a coma from alcohol, another reason why I didn't want to drink. The curse ran through the family. That night, my mom gave me a vape pen. I said, Mom, I don't smoke. She said, Alita, whatever you're going through and keeping quiet about, you don't want it to kill you. You know Mom had a heart attack. I said, I know, Mom. She said, if anything, hit the pen so you can get some rest. My mom went to her room. I looked at this pen and I laughed. I said, when did California come out with this? I took the pen. I looked at the pen. I laughed. I said, when did California come out with this? I took the pen. I had never been so high on another level in my life. I was 33 years old. I was now doing marijuana, something I was once delivered from. I didn't want a substance to be the reason I didn't feel pain. Now I was roaming through my mom's refrigerator, eating weird things altogether. Olives and cheese, fruit punch and black licorice was beyond me. I knew I had to return to the tsunami I left, but right now, I slept as if I didn't have a care in the world. Zenobi kept her word and came and got her hair done. She supported me all around the world. When she would come to St. Louis, she came to my salon and got her hair done. She always paid. I truly respected that she wasn't just my cousin, but she was also a stylist that had faith in me to do her hair. My sister paid to get her hair done twice in 3 days. I hated to leave, but I had to get back to my reality, Pebbles and I. I had never been in an airport with a dog before. She was so small that people kept looking and taking pictures. Pebbles and I made it from California. I was able to make $1,500. Praise the Lord. I got to work the next day just to find out now my husband now had a possible baby. I had just finished my client's hair. I canceled the rest of my clients I had that day and shut the salon down. It was Monday. I knew Eli didn't cut hair. The salon next door was closed every Monday. I was one of the only salons in Belleville that stayed open on Mondays. I closed all the curtains, went to my office, and broke down. I screamed as loud as I could. I asked the Lord, why me in my marriage? Why did he have to disrespect our marriage? I cried until my eyes were almost shut. The Lord will never put more on you than you can bear. I felt like I couldn't bear this. I didn't have time to think things through. I wanted a divorce. This is too much. Ricky quit his job, and in the next week, the car was getting repossessed. Now I get back from Cali, hustling for this family, only to find out that not only did he continue to cheat on me, that he had a possible baby. A possible baby means that he did not use protection. Now I needed to get tested because of my husband was a free-for-all. Ain't no telling who else my husband was going around messing with, let alone not using protection with. If you're going to take your soldier out, at least put a helmet on him before he goes to war. Not my husband. He had the gift that kept on giving. He better not be giving me no deposit of an STD. I asked my husband when he called. I asked my husband when he called to ask if I was coming home. What does my life mean to you, Ricky? It was late and the kids had made it home. I couldn't walk in that house and look at the love of my life in the eye, knowing our marriage was over. He said, you mean everything to me. I laughed. He said, how could you laugh at a time like this? I said, I just got back home and the money I made is gone. Around $850 went to the landlord at home. $600 has to go to the car note that I shouldn't have to pay. And you have a whole baby. He said, a possible baby. There should never have been a possibility. I hung up. I started crying again. This mess was depressing. My head was banging and I couldn't go home like this. I had to get myself together. The next couple of weeks, my house was now a battlefield. What didn't help was this woman continued to contact me. Once she finally had me on the phone, she tried to convince me that she and my husband were together for 2 years. Her story was full of lies. I stopped her. I said, so you have a fiance and cheat on him with a married man. Lady, whoever you are, I really don't care. Both of you are nasty. The only reason why I know about this is because there's a baby involved. The only thing I have left to say to you is that I pray that God has mercy on your soul. I also pray that if you ever get married, your husband never done this to you. And I hung up on her. We had known for a year it was a possibility in 2016 that she could be with his child. She didn't call or text no more Candace. Candace had dropped off the face of the earth. Candace actually waited a whole year for a DNA test. By 2017, my husband and I had moved on. It wasn't perfect, but we were trying to move past it. We were trying to find the love back. The fights were less. We talked and made love all the time. Then one day he got a letter to take a DNA test. The nightmare was back. Another punch. I understood Tina's frustration and pain from Mary. I was definitely watching the show on how she dealt with it. This was the same Mary that had me on my knees singing, I Can't Give Up Now. But Jesus, I wanted to give up. I cried with her. I was throwing things. I was on my knees praying and crying. Don't tell me bit by bit. I'm trying to forgive you for what I just found out, and there is more. I could see that this was never going to be over with. This was real. This baby was real as a $2 bill. Tina said, I got another punch and another punch and another. She said, you're killing me, man. My husband was killing me. My marriage just blew up again. That woman went silent for a whole year. I told my husband, you're not telling me everything. I said, Lord, you're going to have to help me to forgive her and him, because right now I don't see it. My thoughts were all over the place. I would wake up puffy-eyed. He tried to comfort me, but nothing he could do worked. Question, is it your baby? I started to go to the gym and became a gym freak. I wanted to feel anything other than pain. I enjoyed spending time with my children. I started going to work, then picking up the kids, then going to the gym. What I should have been doing was seeking God harder than anything at that time. As if I was seeking God like I was supposed to, I would have never have gotten into the situation I was in. My husband took the DNA test, and we were waiting on the results. To think of betrayal, the pain just felt unbearable. I don't know how else to describe when you want to give up on your marriage. I never got married to get divorced. I valued my vows. You want your children to truly grow up with their mother and father. When the father makes a mistake like this, it can actually make the family either stronger or completely destroyed. At this point, I didn't know whether there was anything left to keep. I was checked out. Not again. I hadn't been through this with Matthew. He just happened not to be my husband. I had been growing very impatient. Since when did it take 2 months for the results? I felt in my spirit he already got the news, but he didn't want to lose me. I didn't really talk to my husband. Instead, I cursed him out. I didn't listen to him when he was hurting, and he said that he didn't want to lose his family. The children saw both of our behaviors. We showed our tails. We argued and fought all the time. We were blinded by our feelings and emotions. We didn't see what we were doing to the kids we had right in our home. How could we fix this? Okay. I knew one day these kids, as well as my husband and I, would need counseling. We were mentally drained. What if was the main topic. If it came out to be his daughter, we would be over. My husband got it worse because I couldn't talk to my family. He heard it so much. June always meant well, but telling June is like telling Facebook. Telling my drunk brother about my drunk husband, yeah. My brother had just flown off a cliff and ran his car into the highway median. I prayed so hard for that boy that only God could let Seth walk away. We told him to go to the hospital, but he was afraid. They were looking for a body since the car was caught on fire. If they caught him, he would have gotten another DUI. I couldn't call my mom. What was she going to say? She had 5 marriages. What could she tell me? Just get a divorce? Not even my grandpa could help me. He had 4 wives, which included my grandma. Cousin Nyla and her husband were both cheated on each other. Cousin Mila was separated from her husband for alcohol as well. I had one last best friend, but everything I said to her somehow we ended up talking about her and her problems. And somehow everything I went through, she went through. My go-to was Grandma, Aunt Carolyn, and Mama Ellis. They were all passed away. I often wondered what they would say. I needed to hear God, what God had to say, just not right now. Right now, I didn't want to pray for my marriage. I heard the Lord clearly say that Ricky was my husband. At this moment, I actually questioned what God said. Lord, are you sure? Why would you give me a husband that does all of this? See y'all in chapter 3. Hurt people, hurt people.